Hello, everyone. Welcome to Courageous Custody Real Stories, Real Solutions, your weekly dose of empowerment and practical guidance.
Yes. Hi, everybody. We understand that there are unique challenges that protective parents face in the courtroom. And our mission is to help equip you with the strategic thinking and emotional support that you need to navigate this difficult journey with strength and resilience. So, if you're a protective parent facing seemingly impossible custody battle, you're not alone.
Every Thursday at 7 o'clock Eastern, we're going to go live on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, bringing you real stories. So, you're going to hear stories about courageous parents who have walked in your shoes and emerged victorious in big ways and small. And their journeys will inspire you and offer valuable insight and also expert advice. Get practical strategies from us to help you advocate for your children, but also manage your trauma as you go through your custody case.
Yeah, so don't miss out on getting your insights from our conversations. We would love for you to jump in with your own comments as we chat so we can hear from you too. And remember, courage is contagious, and together we can rewrite the narrative for protective parents.
Yeah. So
So
let's
let's dive in.
let's dive in. I am the creator of the Custody Blueprint.
And I am Atra Tarfa, a IFS trained trauma recovery coach.
And remember, we're not giving you legal advice. We're not giving you therapy.
No, but we do understand that some of these topics can feel triggering. So we encourage you to take care of yourself. And we want to really dive in today's topic about how to present neglect in family court and what's important to the court and how to present that. So we have
Yes.
this case study of Catherine that we were talking about last week.
We did. So last week, yeah, we started talking about Catherine and the types of neglect that she was going through with the kids. And so I think we can dive a little further in what Catherine was going through and how she presented that in court. And I remember that when we were deciding how to present things in court, we talked about some of the things that are most important. I told her, first we need to categorize the different types of neglect. And, often, when I'm talking to clients, I see there can be medical neglect, meaning that medicine is not being administered, they're not being taken to the doctor, appointments are being missed, or, the other parent might be standing in the way of some medical treatment or intervention that needs to happen. There's also educational neglect. Homework is not being done. They're not being taken to school. They're incredibly late, a lot of absenteeism, whatever it might be. And there can be a variety of other things, right? There can be nutritional, the fact that they're not being fed, they're not being clothed, they're not being bathed. So just basic needs are also not being met. And there's a variety of other ways. So with Catherine, we had to figure out how are we showing this. And the first thing that I'm always saying is you have to have printable proof of things. You have to have evidence. The best way is to have the printable proof of things. And like I talked about, photos are printable. Recordings, by the way, are also printable if they're allowed in your state, if it's legal, because you can't bring in recordings as evidence unless there's a 100% accurate transcript that has been often needs to be certified, notarized to come in. Well, you can print that transcript and then they'll likely want to have a thumb drive of that or some sort of access to that recording itself. So if we're talking about all these different kinds of proof, it is the evidence that you're leading with in order to show that that neglect happened. And witnesses sometimes are part of that evidence package as well. Teachers may observe, neighbors may observe things. The nanny, the babysitter might be seeing that the children are constantly coming home this way, right? Written proof. A lot of these schools have portals now that show when homework wasn't done. And if it's consistently not happening on your co-parent's time, that's a problem. Clinicians' notes, they'll have their own portals where they're saying these are the things that need to happen for your child. This is the medicine that needs to be administered at this dose in this way, etc. And so you have proof that this isn't just your opinion that their child should get their asthma medicine. This is something that the doctor recommended. So with Catherine, we went through and we gathered all of that evidence. Now, where we couldn't find a place, a category, as it were, to put different types of neglect for her, we created sort of a catch-all category called poor judgment. And that can include a variety of things, excuse me. But when we would only have one or two instances of something, right? Like the kids were on TV the whole day, they didn't interact with anybody, they weren't taken to, they're not being taken to play dates, that type of thing. Stuff where it's like all, on its own, it doesn't really look like neglect, but we can show a pattern of just poor judgment, bad parenting that shows a type of neglect, then we're likely to create that catch-all category called poor judgment and present it that way. And then the last thing that you're really showing are your efforts to overcome the neglect. And the best way that we found with Catherine to do that in most clients is to make sure that you are writing to the other parent and trying to get them to do it without using that accusatory tone, without saying, how could you not? Our child is now suffering this and suffering that, but rather saying it more in the way of, hi, I noticed that, our child, didn't have shoes and was soaking wet, like with Catherine. We ended up going to the doctor and the doctor talked about, these are the ways to prevent it in the future. Is there any way that, we could both do that? So it's almost like, without making yourself culpable, you're like, you're a team, you guys are working together, you're co-parenting, and you're not accusing, you're not saying, please don't do that, could you do that, here's what you need to do. As much as that's what we would like to say, I told Catherine, no. Really what you want to do is you want to show that collaboration, show that co-parenting spirit. And so these were the things that we took into court.
You mentioned something and I have a question, but I have another question before this. The two questions come up in me as you're talking here. So this efforts made to overcome the neglect. How would we then deal with the internal struggle of, I'm helping out this person to be a better parent, and when I know that this person is not a great parent, and so I'm in this custody battle with this person, and there's this internal struggle of, I'm sort of helping out the opposing team.
Yeah.
And how do you address the, sort of that when presenting and when talking about the topic of neglect? Because from a trauma standpoint, there's a lot of emotional and psychological struggle going on in here when we're talking about that particular piece of this.
Well, I think one of the places that one would want to look is, how can I continue to present myself as the primary caregiver? Right. And so I think when you're doing the wording, a lot of times what we do with clients is we take a look at the way they're writing something, and we not only look at how can we co-parent, we look at certain words that will clearly show and position you as the primary caregiver. Some ways that we do that is to say, the way that we've always done it, the way that, little Amelia is used to it is this. Amelia's pediatrician has always had us do this, and that's worked well. Just basically giving clues to the court, because remember, everything we put in writing, we have to assume is going to be evidence. We have to assume the court could see. We should assume that they are going to see it, even if, we only use a small percentage of these things. And so whenever we're writing, I think there are these chances to put that in there without being obvious, without cluing them in, but just kind of put it in there. They're likely to be triggered. They're likely to respond badly and just put the accusation back on you and just, do the whole Darvo thing. But in reality, you want to put those things in there, and then that internal struggle of helping them out, it really is a balance, isn't it? And I think part of what needs to be thought about is the court is really going to decide where this lands, unfortunately. So I have to think in terms of how the court is looking at this, at least for now, because this is where we're at in this moment. So it is this reminder of where you're at in this moment, the situation that you're in now.
I think that's such an important point. It's where you're at now, because I think, and you can let me know what your thoughts are on this, but let's say we make efforts to help overcome the neglect, and then, our protective moms do this, and then those efforts are actually come to fruition and the neglect does stop. Now, we know that this often is not the case, but the fear, let me name that there's a fear there that, oh, well, maybe they will start being this person. And then there's two things that can occur: an anger of why couldn't you have been this person when we were together and taking
Yeah.
care of our kid when we were together,
Yeah.
and oh, now you're here to step in and take care of our kid the way that they're supposed to be taken care of. So there's this loss feeling. There's this, oh, so now I will actually have to maybe split time with you because now you are stepping in. And there's this, now I've got to split my time and I lose that time with my child. And how do I get that time back? Then, so I'm just curious what your thoughts are on those two sort
Yeah.
of sides of that coin.
Well, and it is true. It's like if there's something that is really about endangerment, then you got to call them out on it, and you got to hope that they do fix it to the best of their ability.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, maybe I should clarify, we don't necessarily need to write them every time that they do something wrong. A lot of times, we'll have moms, and I know that Catherine did this for a little while before we sort of changed her approach, that want to, memorialize everything on paper for the court to see, when in reality, if you have physical evidence, and I know we talked last episode about how to document the evidence, for those of you
Mhm.
who want to go take a look at that, for our listeners and our viewers. Um, if you are documenting it on your own, then you have to decide, is there a need to get in touch with my other parent? Because I know that, the other parent's going to come back and excoriate me and attack me, and it's going to be ugly anyway, and it's going to turn into this thing. And now he's got to be in his bonnet. And a lot of parents are so traumatized when they go to write or when they read what the other parent has written. Why would you voluntarily enter into that, to try to create a body of evidence when you've already gotten that photo, when you've already gotten the types of evidence we talked about last episode? So I think if you have documentation and your child is being neglected, but not to the point of severe endangerment, and you're about to go to court very, very soon, then it's about getting what the court needs to intervene. And of course, the other possibility is that CPS, that your local child protective agency, is called and brought in. Unfortunately, the majority of parents that we work with are disappointed in the results of that.
Yeah.
But that sort of does the same thing as writing to them sometimes, which is to say that other parent has been put on notice, whether it's through the email of you calling them out nicely, or whether it's because CPS has come in and investigated them. And, the CPS really, often we find that their reports come back unfounded or unsubstantiated, whatever language, your jurisdiction is using. And so it can be hard to get them to actually take the children away, versus now the other parent's on notice.
Hmm. Which then hopefully corrects and stops some of the neglect. But oftentimes we see that it actually is oh, I didn't get in trouble anyway. So then the neglect just continues. And that's just more evidence to document and present before the court, in whether it's medical, education, and nutritional, as you said.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I really think it's important that, protective moms understand that, having your parts that help you organize and present and categorize are super helpful. Understanding that is a frustration that will occur. And there's that dual side of the coin, right? That why didn't he do this way when we were together? And then maybe just a little bit of also fear of loss of time of being with your kid, and just really being compassionate towards yourself, because that's a hard struggle. And but like we say here at Courageous Custody, you are not alone. And having strategies and tips and helping to present how to present neglect before the court is going to be super helpful. So I think that's a bit all what we have for today. What do you think,
It is,
Renee?
yes. That's all for this week's episode of Courageous Custody. And feel free, as always, to put questions and comments, and we can come back to those later as well. Before we go, thank you so much for joining us, whether live or on replay. We're so grateful to have helped in any way we may have. We do have some great takeaways from this week. Categorize the type of evidence you've got, create a poor judgment category if you need to, and gather physical evidence for the neglect as much as possible. So next week, join us again, 7 o'clock here Eastern. Like or follow or bookmark, hit that bell so that you can get the notifications and not miss a thing, because what we're talking about might catch you just when you need it. Don't forget to check the comments to get a free copy of the court appearance prep list. And you can go to thecustodyblueprint.com to learn about the different ways to get help in your case.
Wonderful. So leave your comments. Let us know about your experience with this topic or any topics you'd like to see discussed in the future. Wherever you're listening, remember you are not alone. Until next week, we want you to stay strong. We want you to stay informed, and we want you to keep fighting for what matters most. Bye, everybody.